Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Dr. Anwar Youssef Dunbar and this is Big Discussions 76 Sports. If you see fit, consider liking this video, sharing it, and subscribing to the channel. If you want to make a donation to the channel, you can do that. That information is below in the description box, and also you can leave a super thanks, and also please consider joining the Big Words LLC Newsletter. Well, I think this video is going to be the first of its kind on Big Discussions 76 Sports. For those of you who have been watching me over the last year and a half to 2 years when I started this channel, you know that it's kind of a hybrid. It's in large part a Michigan football channel, as I am a Michigan alum. I've attempted to weave in some other things with varying amounts of success, but also I started this channel because I'm working on a book, a sports related story. And so my approach to my content, it may not be exactly like everyone else's, but I've come from that angle, and I've come from that context. So I am a writer. I've discussed, particularly, I've started discussing since this year started in more depth my book project, and I've been encouraging my viewers to take a look at that. The links, my writer's blog, my promotional essays, and those kinds of things. And I wanted to play an excerpt. I wanted to share an excerpt in this particular video from a conversation I had with someone on the radio that's related to my book project. A couple of years ago, well, geez, I think it's more than that, around the time Dean Smith died. For those of you, I'm sure most of you know, if you're a sports fan, you know who Dean Smith is. You know that Dean Smith was the legendary coach for the University of North Carolina's men's basketball team for a number of years. He coached Michael Jordan. He coached James Worthy, Sam Perkins, Buzz Peterson, Kenny the Jet Smith, Jerry Stackhouse, Rasheed Wallace, Brian Reese, George Lynch. It just goes on and on and on. And that particular day, I was working at home, I believe, and I was looking to find some Michigan football content. So I logged on to, I think it was WTKA. It was either WTKA or WDFN, the fan in Detroit, and both in southeastern Michigan. And I discovered The Huge Show. And if you're unfamiliar with The Huge Show, that's he covers sports in southeastern Michigan. He's got a deep, burly, fatherly voice. And that particular day, and I also like Huge's content because he's balanced. He's not too far to this extreme, and he's not too far to that extreme. The times I've listened to him, but that particular day, he was talking about coaches that had made a difference. And this was, again, in the aftermath of Dean Smith's passing away, which kind of hit me in a certain way because my initial interest in sports was through basketball. And so Dean Smith was an icon to me. So to see someone like that pass away, especially with me being a fan of Michael Jordan, that touched me in a certain way. But the topic of the show was coaches who had made a difference in your life, whether it be down at the Little League level or in the interscholastic level or in the college level, and oftentimes in the lower levels, those coaches making a difference but not getting paid and compensated much. So he was taking callers that day and asking callers about coaches who had made a real difference in their lives. And I called the show up. I talked about Coach Jones. There are videos of Coach Jones. There are videos discussing Coach Jones on this channel. There will probably be more. There are materials on the page for the Engineers, a Western New York basketball story on my writer's blog. But I felt compelled to call up to the Huge Show and talk about Coach Jones. And I did that. And that, after I hung up, Huge told his story. And when Huge told his story, I realized that the themes in my book are pretty much universal for everyone who played sports. So the following excerpt is my call to the Huge Show, and then Huge's reaction to what I said about Coach Jones. And for me, it was very, very touching to hear his story, because, despite the fact that he was from Sparta, Michigan, he was several years older than me. The parallels were, you could hear the parallels. Sports teach you a lot as a youngster, even the disappointments, and regardless of which level you go to, those lessons often stick with us and drive us and guide us throughout life. So please enjoy this excerpt from the my call to the Huge Show years ago. This relates to my book project, The Engineers, a Western New York basketball story. And Huge, if you hear this, please leave a comment. I did ask years ago if it would be okay for me to use that excerpt. I don't remember how I recorded that. I must have went into another room while it was playing here on my computer. But I somehow recorded this, and I listened to it this week at work, and this is one of my favorite calls to a show and interactions with the host. So everyone, enjoy, and please check out, I'm leaving links to my book project below, and these things will be mixed in with the multitude of Michigan football content, especially since we're on the eve of the 2022 season. So enjoy this excerpt, and please leave comments and thoughts below, particularly if you played sports and if there was a coach that made a difference in your life throughout the rest of your life, regardless of how your sports experience turned out. I'll just say this now. Go blue. And as always, remember that your attitude determines your altitude.
Money. I know college coaches, they're making good coin, and pro coaches are making big bucks, but, those high school coaches, those volunteer Little League and high school and junior high coaches, they're not, hardly any of them are making squat. I mean that. Hardly making a dime. Let's go to Anwar in Washington, D.C., listening on the free app or at thehugeshow.net. You're on this Huge Opinion Monday.
Hey, Huge, how you doing?
Hey, Anwar.
Good. I'll try to make this quick. My coach was Coach Ken Jones. I'm from Buffalo, New York, and I earned a spot on my high school basketball team as a sophomore. And I put in the work over the summertime, and I was groomed to be in the starting lineup my junior year, and I got hurt, and I couldn't. I wasn't ready to start at the beginning of the season, and it took about 3 to 4 months for the doctor to find out what was going on. And I didn't know how to handle that adversity. It's very hard at that age to see people basically playing in your place, and you think you're supposed to be out there. And, my grades went down, and I just didn't know how to handle that. And one thing Coach wanted you to tell us was your attitude determines your altitude. And just as when the doctor finally figured out what was wrong with me, I got well, but my grades were down. And so Coach basically cut me because I was ineligible. And I never really got to play for him meaningful minutes because he retired the next year. But that lesson taught me about adversity. Life things don't always go the way you plan them. You can do everything right, but things don't always go the way that you want them to go, but you got to be tough. You got to maintain that positive attitude even when things aren't going the way you want them to go.
Yeah, I agree, Anwar. Great call, and thanks for listening in Washington, D.C. A lot of people now with that free phone app you can get at thehugeshow.net or the free web stream at thehugeshow.net. I told everybody that, my freshman year at Grand Rapids Central High, I didn't go to my classes, flunked every class. Uncles came and moved me and my mom and my brother and sister to my grandmother's house. She had went into Kent Community Hospital after suffering a major stroke. We moved to a bedroom/farming community north of Grand Rapids called Sparta. So I go up there for my sophomore year, Muller, and the coaches, the dads, the teachers, the male role models, and also great female role models with teachers and support staff at that school, they helped shape me. They changed my life. They did. I saw people having dinner around the table. I had great men like Claire Middleton or Louis Emmons and the Bradfords, and everybody just kind of put their arms around me, my brother, my sister, my family. And then sports was a big part of that community, whether it was the wrestling team or football or baseball or basketball, and you aspired because it wasn't peer pressure, but you wanted to do what the other kids were doing. So I remember, I was a pretty good baseball player, played JV and hit like 500, and then got to the varsity, tryouts, and I'm like, I don't need to try out. And Coach Andrus, I'll never forget him. He's like, time to run. I go, I don't run. He goes, really? You don't run? I go, I'm not running. And Muller, he just kicked me off the team. He just said, you're done. He brought up my brother Bob, who I think was a 4-time All-Stater and became a second-round draft pick of the Milwaukee Brewers. He brought up my brother Bob as a freshman. I didn't play baseball again. But I'll tell you what, when I came back for between my junior and senior year, I busted my butt that summer. I was ready to play my final year of baseball, to play on the football team, to try and make Coach Dangler's basketball team. And I got word from the Michigan High School Athletic Association that because of the classes I flunked at Grand Rapids Central, I was ineligible for another year of sports. So my entire senior year, which is supposed to be the greatest year of your life, I had to sit there and watch all those teams I could have been a part of. And also I didn't get the comeback in baseball. But there's 2 ways you could have went there. And if it wasn't for the coaches who still stood by me, and the principal, Mr. Hornby, a lot of people went before the Michigan High School Athletic Association and said, man, look at this kid where he was, flunking every class to now with the 3.85 GPA and college prep classes. But rules are rules. Rules are rules. And man, it hurt. And I didn't give up on the classes. I ended up going to college for a little bit, but then I fell in love with radio, something I wanted to do since the age of 11, and the rest is history. But I'll tell you, the lesson I learned, Muller, that entire senior year at Sparta, not able to play sports and watch everybody else, it's something that, you're 18 at the time, and now I'm 53, that void and that lesson learned, I think, fueled me to succeed. That I knew that what I did as a freshman cost me. And that I haven't been perfect and that there would be mistakes, but I would not fail. I would not fail. And I think part of that was not being able to play those sports. The other part was the life I grew up in where it was just tough. Mother on welfare, food stamps, moving a lot, and it was a tough life. And there are 2 ways you can go. And if I never went to Sparta and never had those coaches and those dads and those assistant coaches and those people, even though I wasn't a star athlete, my brother Bob was fantastic football player and baseball player. Wasn't like a package deal, okay? I was older. My brother Bob's like, hey, if I'm going to play, then he has to start. I never thought about that. I should have. But if I didn't have those great leaders, shapers of minds, the things I'm talking about today, I wouldn't be who I am. And it's still a learning curve. It's still a day-by-day trial and error process as a man. Because then you become that father. You become a husband. You become a boyfriend. You're a brother. You have mortgages. You have finances. You have kids. You have kids who become teenagers. You have younger kids. You have the pressures of life now that become a whole nother dynamic. That's why this show, I tell everybody, this show is one of the great escapes. Why I love this job? The ability to do 3 hours of sports each day, tell you where I stand, both sports and in my life, and be able to talk to great people. It's one of the great escapes. It truly is. All the callers online, stick around. Michigan will hear you next.